How's it going, guys? Andy here and welcome back to another video. As you can see in front of me, I have a Keepa chart for you to have a little look at and a little study of, because I came across this particular chart and thought it did represent a good example of the supply and demand process. And I think it's very important to understand this process and to be able to recognize the patterns in Keepa. Like anything, like with the stock market, like with cryptocurrency, the more you understand, the more you live, breathe and sleep a particular skill, the better you will understand and the better you can use it to your advantage to make more informed decisions and ultimately make more money in your business. So let's have a little look at what's going on here. For some people that aren't overly familiar with the Keepa graph, this represents the data that is being harnessed from Amazon. So the sales, the stock quota, the prices are all represented here in Keepa. Okay, it may look very confusing to begin with, but the more you learn about it and the more you understand, it will become clearer. And really, this information is so vital when you're running an Amazon business, because it can give you a lot more information, a lot more data, which means you'll be able to make a more informed decision and ultimately make more money as a result. So let's just show you here. In green we have sales rank. Okay, so as you've got the peaks and troughs of regular sales, and up here we have the sales rank. So the higher it goes, the slower sales, so the rank goes up as there are less sales, and it pitches back down again as there's a sale. As we can see here on the statistic page, if we hover over this section, you can see over the last 180 days, the average rank is 28,336. This is the toys and games category, so that's a pretty solid rank. And if we look over a more recent period of 90 days, again, it says 30,730, which means there's some good regular sales over that period of time. So we already know this is a good, relatively strong selling item. And over the top here, we can see what's been happening with the price over time. Okay, so we've got the new price, and then we have the third-party FBA price. So this is the third-party sellers. Now down here in this graph, if I just highlight that, this is the new offer count. This is how many items are in the Amazon system at any one time. And as you can see over here, things are relatively stable, slowly going up a bit, slowly going down a bit. The usual supply and demand situation. People get stuff in stock, it slowly sells, and then people get more in stock and it slowly sells. And as you can see, it's been pretty stable over this period of time, and as have the prices, up and down a little bit, but more or less fairly stable. Now we can see in this graph there's been a fairly major change, and that major change is represented here. It's quite a big mountain, and that mountain is coming from the new offer count, which means there's been a big influx of new stock for this particular line at this point of time here. I happen to know about this item, so I know what the reason is. The reason is it's a Disney item, and the Disney store held a pretty decent sale on this particular item at this period of time. So what's happened is the retail arbitrage peeps that are keeping an eye on these things will have found that Disney item and bought it and sent it into FBA. So as these people do this, the stock count goes up dramatically, because the sale will have only gone on for a limited period of time. People would have made their buying decisions and bought it and sent it in straight away. There's a big change coming here. And as we can see from the average prices, as the amount of stock goes up, human nature, unfortunately, we are only human after all. The average price here you can see being relatively steady, almost exactly the same time as that stock influx, drops from there down to here. So that's competition for you. Still a lot of people selling on Amazon FBA that feel that they need to be the person that undercuts the lowest person. And if you're someone who does that, please understand that you can actually match the price of the current buy box seller, and you'll share that buy box. Okay, you do not have to undercut them. You can share that price and you can both sell them at the same time. There's no need to panic and get rid of your stock within the first 2 days. You can share the sales, both make a decent profit and both leave happily ever after. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. People put their stock in, and if someone's selling it for £15, they decide that they're going to have to sell it for 14, and then the next guy comes in with his stock and wants to sell it for 13, and so on and so forth. So as we have the competition going up, the price comes down. So we have a dip. And this is why we have a lot of people that get into retail arbitrage complaining that they can't make any money because there's just too much competition. Well, to a certain extent, a lot of those people will be contributing to the issue by trying to undercut each other and actually having the problem in the first place. If these people exercise some patience, they would have still sold their stock relatively quickly on a good selling item like this. It's selling several times a week. There is no problem in getting your stock away by sharing it with 2 or 3 other people, or even 4 or 5. They will all sell eventually. But anyway, I digress. So they're complaining, I can't sell because as soon as I put something in, there's loads of competition and there's no value in it, which is what's happened here. The supply's gone in, the prices have dropped. It's a fairly common pattern, it happens a lot. But then after this, we look at this mountain here, it's a sharp rise, but then after the sharp rise, it plateaus. That's after the sale is finished. That's the amount of stock has stayed the same. And then as the sales come in slowly, the number of items decreases back down, and that's just a standard. It's just like what's been happening here, but it's just been more severe because there was a sale at the Disney store. But now the sales are happening, and these competition, they're competing against each other and selling it for very relatively little profit, probably 20%, maybe 25%. And look what happens as the number of people selling the stock goes down. Look what happens to the price. Low, low, low. It just pops up again because these sellers have sold out now, and then so the slightly more sensible people were waiting for them to sell out, and then it goes to the next cheapest seller who was holding their prices up a little bit more. And then as we can see, the numbers go down even more, and these people have now sold out, and the number goes down and down, and look what happens to the price. It pops back up again. And that's just a very good representation of supply and demand. And that will continue happening as you see the number of items continues to go down. And we're back up to $13.95 here. And this particular person has only 1 or 2 left. And the next price point will be back to £15 once again. So this is a very common pattern. And you can see in the shape of what's happening here, it happens very often. So you can either do 2 things. If you're the person contributing to this price competition, you can be a little bit more sensible and hold your prices up. Or if you're going to be blaming other people and say, oh, well, someone else has done it, so I have to match them. You don't. You can be sensible and either not send your stock in straight away, or if you do want to send your stock in, just hold your prices up and wait for the prices to come back to you. They inevitably always do, unless one of your competition has managed to buy 500 of the item, which is very rare in this scenario because it was a sale of an online store. It's very difficult to buy in massive numbers, and the type of people that are retail arbitrage are not looking to buy 200, 300, 400 at a time. They're usually buying 3, 4, 6, 10, 15 at a time, and often you'll see them the ones that are competing against each other, scrapping around for small amounts of profit, are people that have 1, 2 and 3 items, usually the lesser educated people that are trying to get into it, and they're the ones moaning that they're not making any money. So that's all I wanted to show you here. Is there are still very good opportunities to make money with retail arbitrage. Yes, you will have to wait a little bit longer for your money, but the idea is you're not just sitting on your hands waiting for this to happen. You will have bought other items maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and by this time they will be selling because your competition has already sold out, and you'll be buying stuff now to sell in 2 or 3 months' time as the competition runs out on that item as well. So as long as you're regularly selling, as long as you're regularly buying, that means you're regularly selling stuff, and there's always a continual pattern of supply and demand, and you'll always have stuff coming into the buy box, and you'll always have stuff selling out, and you'll always have stuff waiting to get to the buy box. And as long as you have a continual cycle and you're always buying for the upcoming period, you'll always be selling, and you don't necessarily you don't have to sit there and wait without any sales. Now, you might say, I can't afford to sit on an item, a product line for 3 months. Well, I would say to that, if you're looking to get into the retail arbitrage business, you do need a reasonable amount of money in the first place to cash flow the business. Buying stock like this, you might be even in a sale, you might be spending £6, £11, £12 per item. And obviously you're going to need a fair amount of cash to be able to buy enough of them to make it work. So really, if you only have £100 or £200, this business model is not really for you. You don't have enough cash flow in your business to make it work. If you do try and do it with that little money, it'll just be very, very slow, and it'll take a long time to build up and reinvest, because you will literally be sitting there and waiting for things to sell. And what you want is to always have items available to buy and always have a stream of sales coming in, which means you have to have enough volume across all your items where you do maybe have stuff that might be not quite hitting the buy box at the moment, but there'll be other things that are right in the buy box and strongly selling. Another few things that will be on the buy box might be a bit slower, but are still chucking along quite nicely, and so on and so forth. And that's why you need the right buying budget for the right strategy. And so I think a lot of the time people come in and are not happy with what's happening is they don't really understand the budget that they may need for a certain area. So if you don't have, for example, I would say you'd need a minimum of £2,000 to make retail arbitrage work properly. And ideally, you'd probably want £5,000, because you need enough items to be able to make those regular sales. So if you don't have that money, what are you going to do? Well, you could, if you have access to a 0% credit card, you could borrow the money. As long as you're strict and you're careful with it, you could do a money transfer to your bank account, and maybe you would have 0% for 24 months or something like that, or even a low interest rate, maybe 4% for that period of time, or a longer period of time. And as long as you're strict and you make the minimum repayments over that time, you can borrow that money and make money off of that borrowed money, or replace it back to the bank at the end of the 24 months. And then the profit that you have made for the £5,000 you borrowed, you can then use as your bank balance. And to be honest with you, in 24 months you should have doubled your money. You should have replaced that £5,000 with £5,000 at the very least, if not quite a bit more. So that's a good strategy. It's relatively safe if you're careful and you understand the process of retail arbitrage enough to make that work. That's absolutely fine. Credit isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you mistreat it, or if you use it to buy things which you just want rather than which you're using to enhance your business and to make money within your business. Because you're buying assets for your business with that money. You're not buying makeup or holidays and things like that. That's a separate thing. That's a different sort of debt. That's a bad debt, because you're not buying anything to help you. You're just buying, it's just a cost, and you're not getting anything from it. So that's something to understand to begin with. And secondly, you might try a different business model. If you haven't got that sort of money, or haven't got access to that sort of money, then I would suggest, if you only have a few £100, £100, £200, start with something like used books. Because you can pick up used books from charity stores and libraries and things like that. You can pick them up from 50p, £1 and £2. So with a budget of £100 or £200, you can buy a lot of books. And those books will return you a much, much higher percentage than you'll ever get from retail arbitrage, or wholesale for that matter. You can easily spend £1 or £2 and get back 10, 12, 15, 25 pound net profit from that £1 or £2 investment. It's a regular thing that you can do by finding books in charity shops. If you're buying used books, it's not a problem to attain those figures. So that's what I would do. Do that for a year or two to amass your buying budget. Keep reinvesting, keep buying more and more and more, and then you'll have a much bigger buying budget. Once you get up to £2,000 to £5,000, you can say, right, I'm going to take some of these profits and reinvest it into toys or into beauty products or whatever it is, and I'm now going to start retail arbitrage or online arbitrage, and that's fine because you'll have enough budget to do that. But you have to make your budget suit what you're doing, and if you don't have enough money, it's just going to be too slow, it's not going to work, you'll get disillusioned. And so yeah, pick the right market for the money that you have, build it up, keep reinvesting, don't spend it, because the money will make you money, and the more money you have, the more buying decisions you can make, the more money you can make again. And people making lots of money have lots of items and lots of buying opportunities to their customers. That's how it works. So that's all I wanted to talk to you about. This has probably run on now, but I wanted to be as comprehensive as I can and answer those questions for the people that are saying retail arbitrage isn't working for me. There is always opportunities. You have to be a little bit smart. You have to understand the market, recognize the supply and demand, and then you will succeed. If you're looking to get into retail arbitrage and you're in the UK, I would recommend the software that I use, which is FBA Wizard. You can get that from the link in the description box below. It's a piece of software that I use that automatically compares prices available online and references the Amazon prices and will bring you back a list of profitable items based on the settings that you set in the software. It's a very powerful piece of software, and it's a very good way of making use of online and retail arbitrage. And there are a ton of other things you can use it for, wholesale as well. It's a very powerful piece of kit. So if you want to get into it and you have the right buying budget for retail arbitrage, I'd recommend that one. Link in the description box below. All right, thank you very much for listening to this. Hopefully it will have helped you out and give you a little bit more insight into how this business works. If you've appreciated this video, I really would appreciate a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you have any questions, as always, happy to help. And if I feature any of your questions on a future video, you'll get yourself a Knowledge Equals Power t-shirt for free and for nothing, which is pretty cool as well. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. My name's Andy Lawrence, and I will catch you on the very next video. Bye for now.